A T-Rex in a soot-streaked lab coat heaves a giant redstone lever, and the ground trembles as piston skyscrapers lurch awake. Vulcanized glowstone floods a jungle ternedzity in an absurd, glorious flash. In 20-second beats, we plunge into a world where dinosaurs run circuitry with claws, tail sweeps, and questionable ergonomics. At the center of this improbable genesis is Dr. REDSTONE Gearjow, a T-Rex with goggles fogged by lava smoke and a taste for complicated contraptions. He didn't so much invent redstone Metropolis as trip over it, literally, on a slab of glowing ore while fending off a helpful pterodactyl. But that origin story reads better when dramatized, and every city needs a founder myth. The camera drifts in low, blocky, cinematic. Dr. Gearjaw's claw hovers, trembling, over a bank of levers the size of boulders. His tail acts as a counterweight. A small raptor assistant, slick with cold dust, hands him a blueprint rolled in reinforced leather. The blue lines twitch like circuit diagrams coming alive. Shift. The first beat is quarry. Under a canopy of pixelated palms, a herd of ankylosaurs cart away obsidian crates while velociraptors scurry on scaffolding, each one wearing tiny miners' helmets that wobble comically on reptilian heads. They dig through layers of dirt and clay like clockwork, harvesting redstone ore that glows like sunrise in a cold, dark hand. The narrator notes with faux solemnity, redstone, for them, was both tool and religion. A Triceratops foreman stamps a hoof, and the sound echoes like a bell. The crew laughs, which in dinosaur terms resembles an earthshake. Next beat. Refinement. Redstone is crude until processed. In a soot-scented mill that smells faintly of charred saplings and toasted cobblestone, stegosaurs with plated tails operate piston-driven presses. Steam hisses and pistons clunk in rhythm. The blocks they compress become repeaters and comparators, each stamped by a three-claw seal. There's a running joke. The T-Rex tries to solder with its tiny arms and keeps setting its lab coat on fire. An apathetic Brachiosaurus, head lost among hanging vines, extinguishes it with a single, slow blink. The audience should feel both admiration and the delicious absurdity of dinosaurs fiddling with micro-scale logic. Scene change. Dockside. Pterodactyl couriers flap across a twilight sky, their saddles laden with bundles of redstone dust wrapped in kelp. They land on cantilevers over waterlogged redstone furnaces where glowstone is refined from nether glow. An arcane process that, in true Minecraft fashion, involves shouting forged by flame and stepping on a pressure plate. An offhand twist. Glowstone is grudgingly harvested from a cooperative of glow squid who demand payment in fermented spider eyes. The narrator pauses to let the image sink in. Lawyers, it turns out, exist even here, in the form of particularly officious diplodocuses who enjoy paperwork. Pacing shift. Urban planning. There is no zoning committee. There are tail sweeps and tempers. Dr. Gearjaw presides over a maptable the size of a crater, using a magnifying glass and a stick. He draws arterial redstone lines like veins. Power to the plazas. He roars, which is, technically, a command. The velociraptor electricians, quick as redstone ticks, install wiring in mosaic patterns. Their claws click like switchboxes as they weave dust through conduits carved into polished stone. Street lamps, torches in glass, flicker to life, each triggered by elegantly cruel daylight sensors that mistake a passing pterodactyl's shadow for an eclipse beat. Architecture. The dinosaurs invent a new style, piston Gothic. Skyscrapers lurch and retract like great mechanical trees. Piston-driven facades breathe, windows tuck away when creepers attempt to flirt with them, and whole rooftops fold into plazas when the Windenclebeter raptors demand sky space. There's comedy in the ergonomics. Elevators are powered by a chorus of long-necked Brachiosaurus bellows. Turnstiles are designed by an anxious compi who insists on 5-point safety harnesses for every player. A subtle twist. Some buildings are intentionally impractical, like the library of excessive levers, where every book requires a separate redstone signal to be retrieved, guaranteeing both security and confusion. A smaller scene. Culture. Dinosaurs develop a nightlife that somehow blends industrial output with vaudeville. Redstone orchestras perform note blocks tuned to Brontosaurus bass, set the cobblestones trembling. Neon vines of glowstone drape, alleyways street vendors hawk smoked kelp kebabs and enchanted carrot sticks that give players temporary levitation. A velociraptor mime act about a stuck piston becomes an overnight sensation. Comedy here is gentle, observational, and affectionate, importing human absurdity into reptilian logistics small twist. The Metropole is not entirely peaceful. At the edge of the map, a quarry magma pocket begins to bubble unpredictably. Dr. Gearjaw thinks of profit, others smell danger. A courier returns with news. A new ore, darker than despair and twice as shiny, has been glimpsed deep below. The narrator leans in conspiratorially. They had the tools to build a city, but not yet the imagination for its consequences. Beat rituals and superstition. When the first piston skyscraper finally rose to its full, wobbling height, the city staged a ceremony. Dinosaurs in robes of cobblestone gather. A chorus of pterodactyls releases lanterns that explode into harmless fireworks of redstone dust, raining sparks. The T-Rex presses the master lever, a dramatic, smoky flourish, and for a beat the world is purely celebratory, pistons singing in chorus. Then, in an ironic aside, one small compi trips on a stray repeater and causes a cascade of switch-hidden lamps that turn half the city into an accidental disco. The solemnity dissolves into laughter. That laughter, the narrator muses, is the true founding spark. Joy final beat for part 1, infrastructure and consequence. As night settles, the glowstone-bathed streets reveal both the city's brilliance and its precariousness. Wires arc like veins under transparent floor panels. Villagers, blocky, bewildered villagers, sleep in huts, powered by redstone timers that make them wake at inconvenient intervals. Dr. Gearjaw walks the avenues, his lab coat singed, his goggles reflecting 1,000 blinking lights. He pats a lamppost with his tiny forearm, as if checking a newborn's pulse. He says simply, "We built more than circuits." A raptor mutters beside him, "We built a problem." The camera pulls back slowly, revealing the Metropolis as a patchwork of ingenious systems and glaring design choices. Bridges too narrow for brontosaur parades, elevators that require a prune button sequence, and a power grid humming with the potential for both boom and brilliance. The narrator's tone softens from mysterious to contemplative. Foundations are set, but a city that wires itself into being is a story that wires itself into chaos. In the next part, the grid awakens in ways the dinosaurs did not anticipate, and their proud circuits will demand answers as curious as they are dangerous. A single ember of redstone arcs over the square and the world tilts. Not a volcano, but invention, sudden and square. Rixford Cogjo, a T-Rex with mechanics goggles and a habit of humming while he works, drops a copper lever into a shallow groove. The lever clicks, and the first piston shudders. The city's heartbeat is born as bricks and sparks. This is the moment the founding sparks start to snap into lines of intent. Rixford narrates almost like a naturalist filming an odd migration, mechanically solemn and secretly ridiculous. Around him, a cast of scaled citizens moves in quick, blocky montage. A Triceratops planner measures foundations with horn and ink. A pair of velociraptors map out conveyor geometry with chalk and ear clicks. Brontosaurs act as cranes, swaying birch frames like slow, dependable arms. They do not speak much. Their communication is pneumatic, and monumental founding is practical and accidental. A misaligned lever here, a pterodactyl sneeze there, a line of redstone dust that behaves like a river. A single surge turns a row of dispensers into seed fountains, and overnight the square is full of saplings arranged in suspiciously tidy hedges. The dinos clap, an awkward percussion of plates and tails and pistons. Early inventions appear like folk art. A clock tower that ticks moods rather than minutes, a piston elevator that sneezes when crowded, a fountain that burps polite water. Rixford delights in pageantry, his blueprints read like stage directions. He commissions a central repeater choir that broadcasts civic notices as tunes. A Triceratops architect objects to the choir's alto. The velociraptors want modular lanes for express carts. The brontosaur insists on granite foundations. Debate escalates into invention wars, which in this city consist of two competing installations being built at the same site and inadvertently combining. One promises a floating park, the other a synchronized fountain show. Together, they create a geyser that spits cactus and confetti. Children collect the glittering dust and use it for birthday rituals that rhyme with compost. A comedic failure becomes civic art, and the council, a jury of elders including Mayor Shelby the ankylosaur, rules both projects. Approved. Rexford's experiments are improvisations. He strings repeaters to kill time and accidentally finds rhythm. Music soon becomes infrastructure. Note blocks announce, lost hatchlings. Drum circuits call for maintenance. Bands form, a tail club timpani section, a quartet of note blocks, and a raptor duo specializing in syncopated piston slaps. Trade adapts to charm. Vendors sell enchanted apples, repurposed fossils with blinking glowstone eyes, and novelty levers stamped with civic slogans. Early governance rituals are performed with a symbolic thump. Rebooting a circuit is an oath, a way to reset small offenses. Weddings have synchronized clicks. Markets open with a fanfare of pistons. But not all sparks are celebratory infrastructure. Strains show up as petty feuds and hilarious sabotage. Velociraptors wire expressways that bypass brontosaur foundations. Brontosaurs respond by adding necessary buttresses that block a raptor's shortcut. Zoning disputes devolve into synchronized contraption tests, culminating in a duel that makes the sky rain petals and redstone dust. Political life is quirky. The Parasaurolophus elder issues whistle commands that double as bylaws. A small twist emerges. The city begins to gossip through its circuits. Daylight sensors blink warnings in a secret code. Note block melodies warn of rain or a borrowed shovel. Love notes are encoded in repeater pulses. Apologies are low piston thuds everyone recognizes. The city literally reads its people. A pattern of flickers on the square means welcome. A long, slow glow means we judge. Mildly visuals shift in cinematic beats. Lamplight on obsidian, a raptor threading wire through hedges, a brontosaur bearing a birch arch. A stray creeper wearing a builder's helmet politely explodes into ornamental gravel that becomes a plaza centerpiece. Small comic beats pepper the founding. A pterodactyl glues a hat to a villager with sticky pistons, and it becomes haute couture. Not all inventions work. The auto sandwich assembler hurls tomatoes like tiny moons and produces a generation of tomatophobic toddlers. Libraries smell faintly of brimstone thanks to a misguided lava lamp climate system, and librarians carry enchanted maps like weapons. Commerce adapts. A velociraptor runs an art stall selling fossils wired with mood lights, and it's both unsettling and fashionable. The Metropolis begins to feel like a living circuit, opinions traveling along copper veins. Mayor Shelby institutes the single thump rule. Any major reboot must be initiated by a ceremonial thump that calms circuits and tempers. Citizens thump in public squares as a civic meditation, and children practice on tiny anvils. Night brings a glow. Thousands of tiny pulses lace the avenues, and the clock tower's note blocks sing the city to sleep. Rixford stands on the balcony, goggles catching the light, proud and slightly unnerved. The Metropolis breathes. Pistons exhale, lamps inhale, children snore in minecarts. But the final, quieter spark is a wire that runs past the lit grid into the fossil fields beyond. It pulses once, a lonely signal into unmined dark. Rixford kneels, fingertip near the copper braid, watches the beat and whispers, how far does it go? There is answer in the night, a faint returning flicker, not yet understood. Founding sparks have become a living grid, and with every clever circuit the Metropolis grows more confident and more entangled. The last image is small and ominous. The wire's pulse ripples toward the bones, and somewhere beneath the dirt old things stir and consider their place in a wired world. Rixford pockets his stopwatch and turns to the city that hummed itself awake. There is pride, there is laughter, and under the laughter a small unease that circuits can reach farther than their makers expect. The Metropolis glows, the next problem wires itself faintly in the distance. When dawn comes, new blueprints are already being sketched in the dust. The founding sparks were only the first kindling. The real test is whether the city can manage the fire it invented. Rixford straightens, brushes coal from his goggles, and says to no one and everyone, "We must see what answers the fields hold." The redstone hums like a question mark across the map. Below, bones are patient above. The newborn city pulses with curiosity and slightly reckless optimism. Founding sparks have fueled a civilization of clever solutions, foolish risks, and sincere rituals. But circuits have memory and curiosity. They will ask questions the dinosaurs have not yet prepared to answer. As the sun lifts blocky and unapologetic into the square, 1,000 redstone pulses beat like a city-sized heart. Rixford takes one last look at the wire's trail and walks toward the pale horizon. The camera catches a pulse traveling down the copper like code, part greeting, part dare. Things underground answered back. It begins with a spark so literal you could photograph the arc and hang it in the town square. Redstone dust, flaring like a tiny, rebellious sunset between two cinder blocks. The camera, if this were a documentary camera and not a Hackett-Toadster slime ball, would hover over the flecks of red glowing on a grid of dirt, and you would see Dr. T. Rex Sprocket lean his scaly, blocky neck in, eyes like polished coal, jaw locked in a thoughtful creak. He is the center of this scene, two large claws tapping a slate of plans, tail knocking over a pile of cobblestone with polite, apologetic thumps. This is Founding Sparks, the moment a scatter of dinosaurs decided that redstone was less a mineral and more a manifesto. The first 20 seconds show the town as a blueprint in motion. Stick figure brachiosauruses sketching roads with sticks of velociraptor, all sharp angles and bright teeth, testing a piston that jerks a chest like a startled bird. The air smells faintly of TNT and toasted kelp. Sparks pop. Redstone torches spit orange like tiny suns. The narration tilts between reverence and smirk, serious about infrastructure, giddy about the chaos that got them there. Every few beats a new visual. T. Rex Sprocket presiding over a semicircle of dinosaurs, architects, masons, electricians. Electricians is a word they borrowed from reading a human manual and mispronouncing it as electricians. He taps a map with a claw. Streets are laid out in grids because Minecraft loves a grid, and because sauropods insist on straight lines, they never turn sharp. The first municipal law is simple and absurd. No tail swinging between scaffolds. It's written on a Seinsenbanner erected by a triceratops in a hard hat, who looks displeased and very official. The founding spark was an accident. A pair of stegosaur siblings wired a redstone lamp for a midnight disco and forgot insulation exists. The lamp blinked rhythmically. A nearby piston caught the beat. A circuit looped. Suddenly there was music, and then there was a schedule for streetlights. Civic infrastructure in this world begins with rhythm and a terrible idea that becomes useful. We cut to a frame where Sprocket stomps in oversized boots to adjust a lever, and the camera lingers on his face. Stern, fascinated, oddly sentimental for a creature whose hobbies include flattening shrubs. A 20-second beat shows community. Dinosaurs hauling basalt, a pterodactyl ferrying, powered minecarts across the skyline like aerial buses, an ankylosaurus welding blocks with a redstone torch held in his platinum. Sensory detail. The metallic clank of rails, the puff of soot from furnace blocks, the crisp click when a lever is flipped. Sounds are exaggerated because everything here is designed for comedic clarity. Clanks sound like timpani, tails swishes like a bassoon. The Metropolis begins to hum. There's humor in the logistics. Dinosaurs have small forelimbs. Redstone wiring often feels like trying to braid a sweater with oven mitts. Triceratops become excellent project managers because they can hold blueprints between horns. Stegosaur plating becomes excellent insulation. A Brachiosaurus's neck provides an elevated perspective for surveying power lines. At one point, a tiny composter misinterprets civic instructions and starts composting redstone dust. "Less power," says Sprocket dryly, peering into the bin. "More patience," replies a brontosaur, who might also be a poet. A surprise twist. The redstone network develops personality. Signals propagate like gossip. If two pistons gossip, the third one opens a hidden bakery door. The Metropolis learns emergent behavior. An automated farm starts selling carrot-shaped souvenirs. A lamppost, after being flipped 1,000 times, begins to blink in Morse code. The dinos treat it like a seer. Folklore forms overnight. Lamppost says the rain will be tomorrow. Announces a velociraptor while selling umbrellas made of leather. Comedy and civic utility braid together. Dr. T. Rex Sprocket spearheads public works with both grandeur and a comic lack of spatial awareness. He oversees the first Redstone Junction, a plaza where circuits meet, and the mayor gives long, blocky speeches about efficiency and beauty. Sprocket is serious, but his gestures send pigeons, cobblestone pigeons, actually carved from mossy stone, flying up as his tail sweeps the plaza. His speech is almost philosophical. "We will lay wires like rivers and build lifts like mountains," he says. A triceratops in the front row yawns dramatically. A velociraptor mutters, "Make it snappier," and everyone chuckles because the velociraptor is always snappier. Technical ingenuity arrives with slapstick. The first automatic gate opens when a sheep bounces on a pressure plate, but the sheep is a bit of a thief and likes to hop back and close it. The first minecart transit system is delayed because a stegosaur insisted on a scenic route. Nests of redstone repeaters become the city's tempo section. No one formally names the conductor, but everyone knows who's leading by who has the loudest costume. There are engineering disasters, too. A miswired clock creates a chorus of doors slamming at dawn, and an entire block learns to wake at the same time, causing a synchronized yawn that starts an avalanche of slumped wheat. The politicking is absurd and charming. There are committees, aesthetics, compost, safety, and one called Why Not, each staffed by dinosaurs with strong opinions and weak gloves. Why Not frequently funds the fun things. A fountain that spouts lava at set intervals for theatrical effect. A monorail that plays organ music when you pass under it. The safety committee puts up signs. Watch for falling brontosaurs and do not feed the redstone. Their enforcement officer is an armadillo-wielding stegosaur who enjoys issuing fines in the form of baked cookies. Scenes shift to contrast scale. Intimate details of soldering redstone dust to copper-like blocks, besides sweeping views of the Metropolis stitched with illuminated rails. The aesthetics are blocky and baroque. Neon sea lanterns interspersed with thatched roof shacks built by dino artisans who like the rustic look. Small twists keep unfolding. The city's clock tower, originally meant to chime the hour, instead develops a preference for jazz and occasionally refuses to strike unless somebody brings it a saxophone-touching scene. Sprocket, alone at his drafting table under a redstone lamp, sketches a plan for a bridge that doubles as a power relay. He mutters to himself, a rare domesticity, and the camera focuses on his claw tracing lines that look like veins on a circuit. For a second, you sense the true founding spark, not just a desire to build, but to connect. To create a place where a pterosaur can commute in a lift, where a family of raptors can run a bakery, where a grumpy ankylosaurus can be mayor of his own tiny district. He's building for community, and that tenderness makes the absurdity suite there our smaller, comedic human touches. A bureaucratic ledger stuffed between two dispenser blocks, a town crier replaced by a redstone bell that stubbornly rings in the rhythm of a polka, a love story in the form of two pistons that learn to synchronize and open a doorway for each other's tale. Dialogues are brief and pungent. "We need more torque," says an engineer. "We need less chaos," replies a poet brontosaur. Both are right. By the end of this part, the blocky Metropolis is no longer a scattering of experiments, but a living organism. Redstone veins pulse through it. We cut on a montage. The first electric tram glides, powered lanterns bloom, a park opens with a fountain that cycles through colors, and a line of dinosaurs waits politely to enter a cinema that shows footage of itself. The camera lingers on the founding Sparks plaque, placed where a single spilled pile of redstone once lay. It is simple and honest. Here, we began because someone couldn't stop dancing. As the sequence winds down, the narration shifts tone toward reflective irony. Founding Sparks are both literal and social. Seeking optimization, they invited unpredictability. The city will grow smarter and stranger. The circuits will find new rhythms and tea. Rex Sprocket will continue issuing proclamations that are half edict, half improv jam. The final frame holds on Sprocket at the junction as dawn pixelates over the skyline, redstone pulsing like heartbeat. He flicks a lever, a streetlight blinks awake, and somewhere, a piston chuckles. The camera pulls back and the narrator offers a curious pivot. They have laid the wires and lit the lamps, but the true test of a metropolis isn't how it runs, it's whether it can surprise its founders. The next part, we will see what those surprises do to them. A thunderclap of pistons breathes life into the skyline as the first ceremonial dispenser fires a cascade of fireworks over obsidian rooftops. And the camera, which is suspiciously cinematic for a blocky world, swoops in to reveal the founder. Thalia the ankylosaurus stands on a redstone dais, tail club gleaming with copper wiring, eyes glowing like powered repeaters. Around her, the new REDSTONE Metropolis stretches in ordered chaos. Rails like arteries, lamp posts humming with daylight sensors, and swampy fern gardens boxed into neat biomes. The narration voice is calm and authoritative, but the scene smells faintly of charred stone and burnt toast from a nearby furnace. This is the founding spark, the moment circuits became civic ritual. Thalia breathes dust and determination, and the city takes a measured, mechanical inhale. Beats of construction punctuate the air. Piston hisses, villagers clacking trade, and a chorus of tiny redstone torches flicking like a congregation of pixelated fireflies. A skyline crane, actually a T-Rex in a hard hat, because of course, lowers a chiseled stone block into place with surprising delicacy. The camera lingers on its claw, the claws comically too large yet deft, and the T-Rex, named Greg, looks embarrassed and mutters a very brief line. Oops. The metropolis grows in modular layers, plazas overpowered by logic gates, fountains fed by waterlogged droppers, and an elegant courthouse whose doors swing open only when the right combination of pressure plates and polite sneezes occur. Thalia oversees it all with a clipboard made of birch planks, stamping approvals with a tailhook. A montage of civic life unfolds in tight beats. A tram squeaks through a tunnel lit by glowstone chandeliers. A bakery produces endless stacks of pumpkin pies. Some suspiciously square an orchestra of note blocks plays a fanfare that occasionally resolves into something resembling jazz. But there are regulations. The Founders' Charter, hammered into an anvil of polished basalt, requires that any public redstone device pass an inspection for safety and drama. Thalia's signature is a ritual. She taps a blinking lever 3 times, then nods, and the inspectors, a committee of velociraptors in reflective vests, stamp plans with tiny talons. They take their jobs seriously, carefully aligning piston code and public aesthetics, and occasionally stopping to admire a particularly tasteful comparator. The absurdity deepens when the city tries to reconcile dinosaur scale with delicate circuitry. Bridges must be wide enough for herds, yet thin enough for tidy cabling. Elevators are built with extra strong slime blocks and a polite sign warning: no stomping during transit. A municipal art installation composed entirely of anvils and banners reclines in the central square, and every noon it falls over dramatically, which the citizens adore. Not everything runs like clockwork. There are power surges, literal, when a herd migrates across buried redstone lines, turning street lamps into a flickering aurora. One memorable blackout is caused by a playful stegosaurus who thinks redstone torches are glowing beetles and decides to herd them. The camera follows the torched trail as the city slips into strobe-lit chaos. A baker balances pies on a helmeted pterosaur and squeals, "Careful." The city learns fast. They install redundant loops, anti-grief barriers, and a polite automated apology sign that unfurls whenever a creeper explodes into a public fountain. Thalia, more diplomat than demolition expert, negotiates treaties between the mining districts and the Paleobotanical Conservatory. She sits at a round table carved from a giant mushroom, the treaty scroll weighed down by a stack of piston cores and a particularly sentimental cactus. Her signature move is to offer the other party a slice of pie programmed to taste like cooperation. Diplomacy, in this city, is edible. Slowly, the Metropolis weaves itself into myth. New hatchlings dart through scaffolding between skyscrapers, tiny claws snagging on vines and sticky pistons. School children, raptors with slippery talons and a studious plesiosaur, learn Boolean logic by constructing breadloaf circuits. At night, the glow of powered rails paints long shadows. Thalia walks the boulevard, tail flicking a coin of gold ingots as she reflects on what they have made. Everyday humor blooms. A laundromat that double-checks armor with an anvil, a rumor of an Enderman boutique selling floating hats, and a municipal holiday called Reset Day, when machines politely reboot and citizens wear whistling party hats. The city's soundtrack is a collage: lever clacks, rail hisses, and the occasional groan of an overworked piston that mimics applause. Then the Metropolis becomes a beacon. Engineers and explorers from distant servers log in to study how a prehistoric species tamed wires. Pixelated tourists arrive at dawn on kelp-shaped ferries, cameras clicking. They call it Dino City. Greg the T-Rex launches guided tour, apologizing after every 5 steps with an awkward bow. Commerce follows. Emerald bazaars where fossilized redstone trades hands, and neighborhoods convert facades into mosaics of observer blocks for photographers. Not everyone adores the spectacle. A council of elders frets over dependency on automation, warning that too many repeaters dull communal problem-solving. A philosopher Triceratops writes in the daily log that a city run by levers risks predictability, and predictability is the grave of adventure. Thalia listens, balancing pragmatism with poetry. She commissions a small, deliberate failure, an artful glitch in the central clock tower that skips a tick once a week, reminding citizens of unpredictability. The glitch becomes ritual people gather to cheer the hiccup. Chaos, when scheduled, acquires civic value. Through rains of lemon-scented showers and slow rivers of lava, the REDSTONE Metropolis grows as a living experiment. Buildings breathe farms pair automated harvesters with hand-tended plots where hatchlings learn to plant seeds by hand. There is room for spare parts and spontaneous music, for bureaucracy stamped with tailprints, and for jokes carved into stone. Thalia's leadership is not absolute. She delegates, laughs, and once orders too many lanterns, turning night into an accidental permanent dawn. The city forgives her. Forgiveness is an engineered feature. A quick reset committee, and a festival where everyone dons mismatched armor and sings in gloriously broken chords. Night falls, but the Metropolis does not sleep. Redstone veins pulse like synapses, lamps bloom like bioluminescent flowers. Above it all, Thalia stands, silhouetted against a furnace-lit horizon. She thinks of the founder's charter, the stamped levers, and the first ceremonial fireworks. Her tail taps a familiar rhythm on the dais, a cadence that once meant begin and now means remember to keep beginning. The camera pulls up, the city folds into a miniature of ordered chaos, piston applause fading to a steady